Well, welcome back to Patriot to the Core podcast. This is Thad Forrester, and I've got good family friend, not only to me and my whole family, that includes Mark. And this is a special episode today as we recognize the 12th anniversary of Mark Forrester's death. And I've got Doug today because he was a big part of Mark's life from college on and has been close to the family ever since. And we see him regularly, I guess at least once or twice a year, Doug, with the events anyway. Maybe sometimes it's some other things too. It doesn't hurt that he married a close family friend. And so, we were able to see each other. So Doug, I appreciate you talking to me this late night and willing to share your, your interactions with Mark, because I want to make sure the listeners understand this is a different one, and I do these every once in a while, and this one's 100% Mark, isn't it?
It is. I don't think we'd had to have much qualifications outside of that. So it is an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure, Thad. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Well, the honor's mine, and we certainly appreciate your friendship to Mark. And there's things that I probably have assumed that I've known that I don't know, and so I'm curious to get your take on a lot of things with your rooming with him and finding out about his death and that kind of thing. But first of all, describe where and when, how you met Mark.
Yeah, I met Mark in Tuscaloosa at um, at the Tinker apartment. So I married Sarah Tinker, and she's one of six sisters. And Mary and Leah and Sarah were all rooming together at the University of Alabama in an apartment. So it was shortly after his return from his mission. So what that would have been the fall of 2002, I think. Um, he came over to their apartment, and that's when I first met Mark. It
Were
was
you? Go ahead, Doug.
yeah, it was a you know I was excited to meet him because I knew you, had relationship with you, and heard a lot about Mark, um, and so anyways, when he showed up, it was nothing like I expected. He was taller and bigger than I thought he would be, and I think he surprised the girls too, and how much taller and bigger that he was as well. It was fun to
Really?
see the looks on their faces.
And what about, how would you describe you taller and bigger? But at that point, did he have? Was he a little pudgy? Did he have that baby face?
Yeah, he was. He certainly was. He wasn't the chiseled man that we knew him later in his years. He was tall. He was big. He was broad shouldered, but he was thick. Yeah, he could be a tight end and do well.
So that was the fall of '02. Mark got home in, well, wait a minute. Let's see. Yeah, Mark got home in October of '02, I believe. So then he started school in January of '03. Does that sound right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. All right. And he lived with me at that point.
that's
Okay.
correct.
All right. So how did y'all decide to room together, and when did that happen?
So that occurred when you took a job in Jackson and moved to Jackson. And then I had a roommate who was engaged and getting married. So I was left without a roommate, which provided an opportune time for us to get together. And I think you guys still had, another 6 months left on your lease or something like that. And I think my lease was up. So we just said, hey, let's, because at that point when we decided we were hanging out a lot more, we had a class together, and so we were building a pretty good relationship and friendship at that point. And so it felt really good to do that.
So the first time you met Mark, did he offer any commentary that was, maybe that offended anyone, or that was extremely opinionated, anything like that you remember?
Not that first time, no. Were there many other times afterwards? Sure, yeah. But not in like, he was never vengeful. He was never hard or bitter. Like his remarks were never out of bitterness or anger or being mean. I think more than anything, it was one out of curiosity, but then also being raised as a youngest in a family that were, I mean, I think you would agree, all strong opinions. There's a lot of strong opinions about a lot of things. So he was free to express those opinions at home, and I don't know if those, it always worked well with me. I appreciated him, but I don't know if it always worked for everybody else. And it's other social situations.
No, I think it was a bit much for probably the majority of people. I can tell you, Doug, I don't think you were there, but we were at Jeffrey Norris's apartment one time, and anyway. I don't want to give too much detail, but Mark and I made a girl cry, and this was a little too strong. The girl was arguing. She said, "I don't think a woman should take a man's last name when you get married," and so Mark and I just did not like that and didn't agree with it, and so we cared a little too much about something. I mean, it's not like we were marrying her. It was just, that's how we were sometimes. And she ended up crying. And yeah, we could be a little much, Doug.
Well, yeah, especially when it came to that department. Look, y'all were raised by a tremendous woman. And all Mama Pat wanted to be was a wife and a mom and just a homemaker. And so, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's a tremendous blessing to your family's life, is that she was able to do that. And I think with that strong influence, it's tough to see anything else outside of it. Like, I would totally want that for my family too. I think
Hmm.
those are good, righteous things, but it comes a little sharp when
Yeah. Yeah.
when there's no sugar on that medicine.
Yeah. And, we on the surface knew that we were a lot to handle, but we didn't really know. It just kind of like sounded like, yeah, you know what, we're probably a little too strong for most people. And then we throw Joseph in the mix when us three hung out. It got pretty rough. And if we would go to, we went to a water park together a few times, and we would always end up hurting someone physically, accidentally, somebody out, not us three, hurting somebody else. And, we just, we had fun, but we probably lacked a little self-awareness.
I think that's part of the charm, really, to be honest.
Well,
uh,
what was it like living with him?
it was the best. uh, One, I think, because, again, to bring up to your mom, uh, we were spoiled. Pat, like, I didn't realize how great it would be moving in to a Forester house, because Pat cooked, she took care of Mark, and I got the spoils. And even just a sliver of those spoils was more than I ever experienced in the few years I was down there before Mark got there. And so it was great because of your mom. And then, of course, I got to spend Christmas one year with you guys, which was really awesome and really special. But it was always entertaining with Mark. You never knew what you got from day to day. You never knew what kind of riled him up. So I went to school, I worked, and so I usually got home, around 9 o'clock in the evening. So he would be there either studying or, well, most of the time playing video games or watching TV. And I said, okay, what's the report today? And then he just kind of go through a list. There was this preacher. Did you see him over at Tin Hor Hall? He was saying this, and I was asking these questions, and he wasn't answering back. Like, he'd just get riled up, or somebody parked in the handicap spot that wasn't supposed to be parked in the handicap spot at work. That really fired me up. And if I saw him, this is what I was going to say to him. And so that was always entertaining. Of course, all the movies, all the shows. You don't have to watch it because we repeated them most of the time. So that was really fun. We were both very particular individuals. I think there were. I think I don't know if we consider ourselves more mature, but there are things that just annoyed us that younger like a younger crowd or a younger immature person would do. So we had house rules when we lived together. We agreed upon some house rules, and we believed in capital punishment. And so we had a yardstick that we named Mr. Humble,
This is a wooden yardstick.
a wooden yardstick.
Okay.
And if anyone violated those rules, they would get a lashing.
That's mature. Yeah.
We thought we were very mature, but how immature of us to establish that type of rhetoric in a household. So, anyways, it became a joke where individuals really started violating the rules on purpose to see if we would come through, and we always came through. We never allowed them to, but then it became a joke to where it just got ridiculous, and people were really on purpose trying to break rules, which was like talking during a movie when you're really not supposed to talk during a movie, or you know, what other faux pas at the time there were. I don't know. It's just silly stuff.
Who
So
was
that was
somebody
fun.
that liked it, that liked to get, I'm thinking maybe A Train, or I don't know, Dalen, or
Yeah, they both of those, yes,
okay.
definitely. The girls really liked it too. They liked pushing our buttons as well, and they'd really like to see if we would follow through. And yeah, we did. They got lashings. No one was injured, and we didn't get sued, and we didn't get kicked out of school. So I guess it was okay.
Did you ever hear him talk about Team Impact? You know, the big bodybuilder guys that would go to, they worked with churches a lot, and they would be like, and I love hearing Mark do it. It's like, I love Jesus so much. I want to rip this phone book in half. Or I'm
Yeah,
going to break this cinder block with my head because I love Jesus so much. You remember that?
yeah, yeah. So we'd watch. I mean, we'd watch the silliest crud that you could. I mean, Terry Tate
Yeah, yeah,
nonstop.
definitely. That's a great one.
Stuff like that. Um, yeah, and then there was all. We also there was a time where when we were living together, the State of the Union address came on, and we both made a point, like we talked about it before. Hey, the State of the Union address is on. We need to be here together and watch it together. Like it was important for us to have that experience together, and so we did. And so we were watching it. And if you're familiar with the State of the Union address, whenever your guy is saying something that is really great, the good, their guys stand up and clap. So there was points where the president was saying things and the good guys stood up. That's when we stood up. When we stood up in our room, we clapped like we were part of the State of the Union address. And then when they'd sit down, we'd sit down and we'd listen to the rest of the thing. And then they'd stand up, clap, we'd stand up and clap, and it went on for the entire State of the Union address. But it fired us up. We loved it. It was a cool experience. So
Yeah. Well, I was part of some of those with Mark too, and I can see him right now standing up and clapping as W was speaking for sure.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, there's one story, Doug, that I'd like some, if you can help me out with, because I now am not sure if this is something that I saw or Mark saw. Because if it's something I saw, I wanted so badly to share it with Mark, and I never was able to. So tell me if you know. I know that it happened driving across the bridge, that newer bridge that went from Rice Mine Road to Jack Warner, or maybe what used to be called River Road, over there, kind of close to our house.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep thinking that either me or Mark saw a man in a truck with a mattress in the back, and a big lady was laying on top of it, spread eagle, to hold the mattress down as they drove over that bridge. Do you know that story? Did that come from Mark, that he saw it, or did it come from me and it was after Mark was dead and I wished I could have shared it with him?
I don't recall that. I
Okay.
wish I could confirm that for you. I really don't recall, but of course one of you guys would witness that. I mean, the universe was very kind that way for y'all to see stuff like that.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's, I don't know. I know it's like at least I've wanted Mark to be involved in that so badly that I've convinced myself that he was. I'm just not sure though. Now, well, what about his talk about joining the military and his preparation for the military?
Yeah, so when we were living together, I don't think he had a real strong, keen understanding of what he was going to do quite yet, where he was going to go. I think there was obviously a very strong interest in it. And what I mean by that is that we did talk about the different branches of the military. We watched military documentaries. We watched Black Hawk Down probably 374 times. Um, Talked about it. We talked about what their jobs were, the significance behind it. Um, we talked about, you know, some of the rigors, that these guys go through, especially in the special operations stuff, the training that they go through. I think we watched, the Navy SEALs documentary on Discovery Channel multiple times, together. Just fascinating things like that. So it really wasn't until I think he was living with you in the house that you had in, Northport, and I think he went down to San Antonio with Joseph, and Joseph went and showed him, I think, the PJs working out. And then they went over and I think he heard something about the combat controllers. And I think it was after that. After that, I remember coming over to your house Sunday, Sarah and I coming over, and he just showing me video after video of combat controller stuff and what they were doing. And he said, that's what I'm going to do. I know this is what I'm going to do. It's the hardest. Takes a lot, and I'll be able to affect a lot. Basically, I'll be able to kill a lot of bad people, which he wanted to do and felt like God told him he needed to do.
Mm-hmm. At that point, Mark was probably already physically, he had already changed quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. So he had started working out when we're not started, but I mean, I think he always tried to work out when he was in college. But when we lived together, it seemed like he had a more stringent schedule and working out, like lifting weights and a little bit of cardio. Nothing like I think when he lived with you and he knew exactly what he was doing, but he worked up to that. And I think when he was living with you, he was working on his swimming, um, his running times. I mean, all the stuff that you would have to pass in order to, you know, to
Yeah.
be, make it through that pipeline type deal. So
Yeah, that's definitely a regret of mine that I didn't join him in some of that more. And I think he wanted me to. And I felt at that point, I was just like, yeah, I play tennis every Monday night, so I'm good.
well,
Yeah.
I tried to. I mean, when I lived with him, we'd go work out in the mornings, but I just couldn't keep up with him. I didn't have the drive. Like I think deep down in his mind, he knew what his end goal was, even though he really didn't know it at that time, which kept him going harder than me. And I'm like, I think I'm just gonna sleep in today. I need to study rather than take the time to, go work out or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Well, and I think there's a lot of people that don't realize this, Doug, is when Mark lived with me at first, so right after his mission, when he moved in with me, they're on Hargrove Road at the Palisades, I think. And so he lived with me a few months before school started. And he was lazy, in my opinion. I mean, he did spend a lot of time on the couch and a lot of time playing video games. And it drove me crazy for a little while because I was working at that time full time. And so he really did, I think, when he really, even though he had been fired up about 9/11 while he was on his mission. So over a year prior, he hadn't really started his physical training yet. But by the time, yeah, at this point now we're looking at like 2005 and 6, and he was a completely different man.
Yeah. I recently listened to your podcast, your Read broadcast with Kyle DeFore, and him describing what he was like that last year and a half of high school, or I guess his junior, senior. He was just a machine. Like, it was just running. It was push-ups. It was swimming.
Hmm.
All those things. It's just, I think I realized, man, that was Mark. Those years that you referenced there, 2005, 2006. Like, once he knew exactly what he wanted to do, there was no stopping it. Like, he was going to achieve it. He was going to knock down every barrier, every wall in order to achieve what his goal was going to be.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was inspiring.
Well, and to go from, because he and I used to race quite a bit, whether we were out throwing the football or whatever, and I could outrun him there for a while. And at some point there in '05, maybe '04, I'm guessing it had to be '05 or later. I couldn't keep up, and he would actually blow me away. I was amazed at how much faster he was than me, and of course, I never stood a chance. Once that happened.
Yeah, so he came home. He was probably, what, 230 pounds, I think you referenced at one point.
I think so.
So what did he get to, do you know what he was at, his fighting weight at?
Doug, I don't. I think I put it in the book, but it was all estimations. It was less than 230 for sure. He was trimmed out, his shoulders broadened. I mean, I'm guessing he was about 215 or two. Yeah, I'm guessing 215 though. What do you think?
Yeah, probably. I mean, he gained so much muscle during that time
Uh-huh.
too. So
And I remember he bulked up a little bit during times in the training, and sometimes he trimmed up. But yeah, probably I'm guessing his biggest point when he was in the pipeline was about 215.
yeah.
I have to double check that maybe with Johnny or Bobby. They might know. So what about some of your final communications before he actually left for basic training?
Before he left for basic, I was newly married, and that's all. That's fun and exciting, and it's pretty self-absorbed. So we didn't talk as much right before he went to basic. I don't really remember any significant conversations right before he left. I remember him leaving, and really, honestly, the next thing I remember is that I'm seeing pictures of his graduation from basic. That's really how quick in my mind, that happened. It wasn't until he was um, in his pipeline training, and a little bit further into that, to where we connected again and talked a little bit more.
Well, what were those conversations like when he was in the training?
It was all really, it was me. I was so curious on what he was doing, what was the training, what was the next step. So a lot of the conversation was around that. There were some things about, um, you know, just the makeup of military life and what that was like, which really didn't bother him. He was a pretty amenable guy. I mean, he could really adapt to a lot of situations, so that wasn't hard for him. I remember during the swimming in the water stuff, that I remember him telling me after he passed it. He said, "Doug, I almost didn't make it. Like, this is the point of that pipeline, or whatever. I don't know the terminology, but this is the point where I thought I wasn't gonna continue." Like, that was the first time I ever heard him, like, relay and admit that, this could be an end to what my goal was. So that was a little. I was like, oh, okay, this is really, it's really hard type thing. And then I remember talking to him after he went. I think, did he go to Washington State for senior school?
Mm-hmm.
um, and some of the stuff that they made him do out there. He said, it's just like the woods in Alabama. Nothing I really didn't experience here. I mean, of course, there was different games and things like that they had to do. So I remember discussing that stuff with him, but all that stuff was fun for him. Like, he loved it. He loved being out in the ocean scuba diving. He loved being out in the woods. He loved pushing his body. So it was a lot of yeah, it's hard, but I absolutely love it. Um, and so, yeah, all those conversations were basically him just telling me he loves it. He's succeeding. It's hard. I'm making some good friends. I love my training, stuff like that.
Do you know if the swimming part that he said that was tough? Do you know if that was combat dive school?
Um, is it the one where they give you a hard time in the pool? Like they're ripping your mask off and
I think so.
yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay. Did he
That's called
ever
combat dive school, yeah.
did he ever tell you like I think I may die or I thought I was going to die today?
Yeah, especially in that because he was underwater so long, he didn't know. I don't know if he was taking in water or something like that, but it was. I don't remember all the details, but I remember him having an experience where one he thought he'd die and he thought he'd fail.
Okay. Yeah, because I know that that was a portion, Doug, that wasn't that I submitted to AFSOC too. And what I put in that portion of the book was Mark thought like he felt like every day he may die. And they asked me to not put that in the book. And I don't think I did. I think that's one of those, most of the time I did as they asked anyway, in most cases. And I think that's one of them that I removed it. All right. So when it gets close to deployment time, was there any farewell party or something that you were part of before he deployed?
Um, what did we have at your house? Was that a deployment party?
I think so. Yeah, it was a birth. I think it was a birthday, but it was the birth. Wait a minute, Doug. I don't know now. I have to go look at the pictures. I feel like it had to be before he.
We did that
Uh,
video, we did a montage of him,
yeah,
pictures, and of course we had the Rocky song in there and all that stuff. And,
I think
so
that was for basic training.
I think
Does
it
that sound right?
was. You know what? I think it was. Because it was your house, your mom and dad were over there. Yeah, I think it was for basic training.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I do remember that. We cooked out. We had that video. We showed that video. Sarah worked on that thing, I think, until 4 a.m. The next day, timing the pictures to the every beat of the music. To go through.
yeah, that was a great job.
I
I
remember doing
appreciate you
that.
doing that.
But what I remember the most about his deployment to Afghanistan, I was in Haleyville for Christmas. He was there for Christmas, and I think he had finished his, what do you call it, his upgraded training or something like that. His training before deployment. I don't know, whatever he
Yeah,
extra training he gets over at Pope. Anyways, he was back from that, and we're just there hanging out, talking, and there was one moment he's like, "Hey, Doug, you wanna go shoot guns and test out my night vision stuff?" I'm like, "Yes, let's do that." That sounds like a great time. So he had two sets of night vision goggles. Now, I hope this doesn't get him. Well, he can't get in trouble now. But anyways, he had that stuff, and we went out and we shot pistols into the back 40 there, and had the night vision. And after we unloaded all the magazines and had a great time, I took the opportunity. I was very worried, and I was nervous about asking him about when the bullets started flying. Like I said, "Hey, I wanted to say, Mark, when you come back, I really want to ask you very specific details about what it was like to have a bullet fly through by your head, to see things blow up, for you to blow up things, and for you to kill people. Like, would you mind me I asked permission when you come back, would you mind me asking those questions?" And he said, "I don't care. You can ask, you can ask me those questions when you come back." That was a big deal for me. The other part of that, the reason for me wanting to ask that is all of my, I was a history major, and the last 2 years of my degree, I was basically studying wars and the effects of wars on individuals and on the enemy and on the allies, and the psychological effect and the tremendous burden that these individuals held for many, many years. I was worried that Mark, that it would affect him in some way. It would be damaging to his psyche, and would he be able to function normally afterward? I mean, those were real concerns of mine, and I expressed those to him. And he looked me in the eye, and with all the confidence and without batting an eye, he said, "Doug, I am 100% completely confident in my training. I have been expertly trained. Now, I don't know how I will react when the bullets fly. Like we don't know that, but I know I can trust in my training, and I feel like I'll be fine." And I said, "Okay." I saw that look, and I said, "Okay, I discern he's good. Like he's he's going to be okay." And it wasn't until he was deployed, he was at Cobra. It was probably, I don't know, July or August. We're Skyping, and he comes on the camera, legs kicked up on the desk. He's got a bowl of Cheerios in his, on his chest, eating a bowl of Cheerios. And he's like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And I'm like, "I'm doing great. How are you?" He's like, "Man, it's great." I think he shared a little bit of the story of what he could from his Silver Star situation, but I think
No, Bronze Star
Bronze
with
Star from the
Fowler,
Bronze
probably.
Star situation.
So
Yeah.
that was, I think, August, early August.
So he shared a little bit of that experience, and I feel like I talked to him before then. Because he talked about using his grenade launcher. He said, "If I have to use my grenade launcher, it's a bad day." So when I got on that call, I'm like, "Did you have to use your grenade launcher today?" He goes, "No, it was a good day actually. But let me tell you about this bad day that I had." So he shared all that, and then the same look that I saw in his eyes in December, I saw in his eyes in that August afternoon, morning, I don't know, whatever time it was for him. That yeah, he's been shot. He's been in some very precarious situations. He's probably killed individuals at this point. He's got his feet up, eating a bowl of Cheerios, and I discern he's going to be okay. Like his training's taken over. He's doing a good job. So after that, I really didn't think of anything. Like I didn't think I would have to worry about anything else later on with him
Okay.
psychologically.
Yeah. How many times did y'all Skype while he was deployed?
I mean, not long. Probably maybe 4 at the most. Not a whole lot.
When was the last one, Doug?
Um, it was August. I think it was the one in August.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we had any in September. Yeah.
All right. So are you ready to move to September 29th? Is there anything you want to talk about before then?
No, we can
Okay.
move on there.
So how did you find out about his death?
Yeah, Sarah and I were at home in the evening, working up in our office in our bonus room, organizing some things. And Jana, her sister, called her and said, "Did you see Joseph's post on Facebook?" And Joseph, I don't remember exactly everything Joseph said, but he ended it, "R.I.P. little brother." And Jana was like, "Is he saying what we think he's like? Is he saying that Mark's dead, or is he talking about a teammate or somebody else?" Like she just didn't know. And so Sarah said, "Call Thad." So I said, "Okay, I'm gonna call Thad." And I called you, and I said, "That is it true?" And you said, "Yeah, it's true. He was killed." And I think I just said no multiple times. And I said, "I can't believe it." Um, I don't know what I asked after that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I definitely didn't want to take any more of your time. I didn't want to ask you questions or burden you with anything. I was just, yeah. I think I don't know, you might have been on your way to Haleville or something at that point, you know.
Yeah, I think so. I think we were on our way. Roz was driving, and I was on the phone for a lot of that anyway. Okay. From what I remember, I don't think you and I talked long.
No, it was a pretty short conversation. Yeah, it was pretty short.
Okay. So then, Doug, when did you get to Hay Level, or what was your next move?
Um, we got there either, I think, Friday night. Um, I think that the night you guys were in Dover, you guys flew to Dover.
So that
We
was
came
Thursday night.
Thursday night. So we might
Thursday.
have came Thursday or Friday. I can't remember exactly. We were there. And then, the next time we came back with you guys is we came to mom and dad's house and we watched the Florida game. Family got together and we watched the Florida game and hung out there. And I think part of that day, we had a lot of your nieces and nephews over at my in-laws' house. I think there was my niece's birthday party, and so we invited all them over just to kind of give, I think, all the adults a break a little bit. So we had everybody,
Okay.
Joseph's kids, David and Christie's kids.
This was before the funeral. This is the Saturday after
Yeah,
his death. Okay.
that's
Okay.
correct. Yep. Um, and so yeah, we hung out with them for a little while, had that birthday party, then we all came over to y'all's house and we watched the University of Florida game, and we just hung out there through the entire evening, really.
Yeah. Okay. So what was the next, first of all, I guess, what were the next several days for you, Doug, up until, the funeral?
Um, uh, they were crappy, you know. There was a lot of unbelief, disbelief of what just happened, denial. There's anger. There was, of course, sadness. There's a lot of sweet moments of consoling, family and talking about that. Of course, a lot of tears, a lot of hugs, a lot of prayer. Um, so yeah, that just a lot, just every single range of emotion that I think a close enough friend to the individual and to the family could go through is what we went through at that time. Me especially. Yeah.
What is something that stands out, Doug, when you think about that period of time, maybe even up till after the funeral? Did you go to the memorial in Pope? I
No,
know
did
some
I
of
go
the
to
Tinkers did.
yeah,
Okay.
just I think yeah, Canella and Leah
Okay.
went to that. So no, I didn't go to Pope. We actually stayed back, and we just I think we just worked around your mom and dad's house. I think we just started like just doing stuff.
Okay.
It might have been just I don't we might have been doing yard work and the girls were cleaning the house and the boys are outside, blowing the driveway, stuff like that. I don't know. From washing cars. That's what my memory is telling me. So,
Yeah. Okay.
but I think the next thing I remember is getting to the airport early in the morning when Joseph was with Mark in the airplane.
Okay.
They had that dignified transfer there at a Haleable Airport, and we were behind you guys. I think we drove, followed. I think that's when he went right to Pinkard, right? At that point, to the funeral home.
I think so.
I think we followed you guys to there. And I just remember, and I know you make mention of this a lot of times, but just being, I mean, profoundly sad, but also profoundly proud of the town of Haleyville and the supporters to see the streets lined with individuals waving the flag and paying their respects. Being there that early in the morning and going through that, I'd never experienced that. I mean, you see it on TV and everything like that, but once you really experience, you really begin to appreciate um, the single sacrifice that an individual like Mark makes, compounded by by thousands of individuals before him that have made similar sacrifices. Like all that came to my mind where I'm, you know what, this is why a lot of these individuals serve and are passionate like Mark are, is for, and it's for many reasons, but just seeing the people respect that, I felt profoundly proud and relieved, that they were respecting him in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It brought a comfort, really. It really brought a comfort to see that.
Yeah. What are some things that stand out to you, Doug, now, especially after 12 years, and maybe you've gone through some old emails or some text or some journal entries of yours? I mean, what are your thoughts and memories that you would like to share about him?
Well, first, I just want to what I remember a lot is how generous you, your mom and dad, and the rest of the family were with some of us, what I call outsiders, and allowing us to be a part. Like we weren't vying for any attention, we weren't vying for stuff. But like one particular instance, your mother called, Patricia, my mother-in-law, and said, "Hey, if you guys want to go down and talk to Mark by yourself, you can. We want you to have that opportunity to do that." And I just thought, man, here's his mom just experienced this tremendous tragedy, and she's thinking of others, to have this closure with her son. And I just thought how wonderful, how special, how selfless of an act that was for her to reach out and say to do that. So Sarah and I took that opportunity. We went down to Pinkert's, and he was in that one viewing room, and the casket was open, and we were able to just talk to Mark.
When was that, Doug?
When?
Yeah.
I think it was before the actual beginning of the viewing. Before
Okay.
all the other patrons showed up. It was
Okay.
before that, and it was after you guys, I think, had spent some time in there as well. I mean, I don't know. I'm a conjecture. I'm not really entirely sure, but yeah, it was somewhere before that
Okay.
that viewing. So yeah, we went and spent that time in there. We could spend as much time as we wanted, in there. So yeah, we did, and I mean, I remember that didn't look like Mark. He was. It wasn't at that point. A lot of stuff had been setting in and things like that, and it just wasn't him,
Yeah.
and not even the shell of him that I really, always knew him to be.
Yeah.
I know Bobby speaks of it when he saw him in Kandahar that it looked like Mark, but that was just so fresh. But this was, obviously later down the road, it wasn't
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. It took so long to get him back. And then he was, they took care of his body at Dover, I believe, is where they did all the embalming and the haircut and all that. So what else, Doug? Go ahead. What about maybe his impact on you or anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, it was, of course, the family, you guys being so generous with your time, but then just, I don't know. I think I was just in so much disbelief and denial. I think I had just so many questions I wanted answered about the situation. I wanted to know every single detail of what happened and how in the world could someone like Mark, I know that may seem ridiculous for other people, but how could he, so expertly trained, doing exactly what he thought he knew he needed to do in life, right? Why was that cut short? Why, if this was what he was meant to do, and succeed in doing it, why is this stopped right now? Because I never, before his deployment, I never allowed myself to think of not seeing him after the deployment. It just for some reason was never a thought in my mind. It was always, he goes on deployment, he comes home, we hang out, and it's just like old times, right? I just never allowed myself to think he could die. And so I think I was just trying to reel with those feelings of, okay, he's actually gone. Now what? What's my relationship going to move forward? And, all these selfish things, that how is this going to affect me type thing, that I'm kind of embarrassed to admit, but really that's just honestly what was going through my mind is I've just lost a friend. I've lost years of opportunity of sharing his life experiences and my life experiences together. I so look forward to that, to staying close to him through the rest of our lives. And that was gone.
Mm-hmm. If you had have spoken at the funeral, which you would have been a great speaker, what would you have said?
Golly, I don't know. I would have tried to do my best to share with individuals, like capture Mark and articulate what he was in my mind and what I viewed through my lenses through the few years that I had the opportunity to know him, how he interacted with his family, how he interacted with friends, and what type of influence he was to individuals, especially later on when he was so determined. I think I would talk a lot about his perseverance. I talk a lot about his he had pride in a lot of ways, in things that I think are justifiable and good pride, but he was so selfless, uh, and he was so curious about so many things, which made him so lovable to a lot of people. And so I think I would try to articulate that, and maybe share some things about that. And of course, it's fitting, that he died saving an individual, trying to recover an individual. He lived his life outside of his military life in a selfless way. Those that are close, we saw some selfish sides of Mark, but as a whole, to society and to the majority of his friends, to the majority of the time, he was completely selfless. He almost embodied, and I don't want to project and I don't want to exalt him. I think he would be very uncomfortable, I think, with a lot of the attention that he's received, after his death, because he was such a chill, humble dude. But I never experienced an individual like Mark previously to meeting Mark, to where he possessed all of the good attributes that you really want to see in a person. Like, it's really rare to see multiple really good, strong attributes in one individual. There are individuals that have parts of those attributes, but he possessed a majority of the good attributes. And since his death, I haven't experienced anyone like Mark that possessed multiple really good, strong, favorable attributes. It's very unique. And like I said, I don't want to exalt him to what he was. He had his faults. We all know that he had his faults. But I think that's one of the reasons why, Bobby and Johnny and Ish and, Chief Markham and a lot of his superiors talked the way they did about him, because I think they saw those same things that we all knew. So I think I would try to say something to that effect as well, that he was very unique in his character. So combine that with a mission, combine that with killing bad guys, you set them up to be a really strong ally for good.
Yeah.
To do a lot of good stuff.
Well, and Doug, you just led me into then made me think of that episode of Coming Home, that Lifetime did. First season, they did one episode on Mark. And it was a very unique episode compared to all the other ones and compared to the format of the show. But they interviewed you and Scott, Bradbury, and Brad Knight. And will you share what you said there when the host asked you about what did we lose
Man,
with
that was
Mark?
hard to do and uncomfortable. Golly, that's just not a fun situation. But I was happy and
Was it
glad.
because you were shooting basketball beforehand?
Yes, it's not my sport. We should have been taking batting practice.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
Doug hates basketball. Yeah.
it's not my jam. But anyways, uh, I think I said something to the effect of, the world lost an honorable son, an honorable brother, a very loyal friend, an ally for God, country, and family. And I meant that. We did. Like there's no one else that you would want on you would want Mark Forster on your team. No matter what you were doing, you wanted Mark on your team because he would be that positive reinforcement. He would be that, you have fallen, you have him, you feel yourself being picked up because Mark's picking you up. Um, you you go off and say something that you're not supposed to, or would be unsavory or not appropriate. He called you out. He said that's not appropriate, right? I mean, there's not a lot of individuals that have the integrity, the moral authority to correct other individuals in those situations. But Mark had that, because he lived his life in a way that allowed him to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah. No one has told me since Mark. They've never used the word snide. Like, Thad, don't give me that snide remark. I haven't heard that from anybody since Buddy Boy. Doug, what about any dreams that you would want to share?
Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And you may not want to. I just throwing it out there.
I don't know about dreams. I know more of impressions that I've received. Um, I know one in particular. It was shortly after his death. I was at the Birmingham Temple and just sitting there and felt and was impressed very clearly in my mind that the mission continued for Mark. And I felt like I was led into a little bit of what he was doing, um, and how busy he was. I saw a smile that was clear as day. Um, and the impression was so strong, and it was as if he didn't say anything to me, but he was looking me directly into the eye, and it was as if we were communicating one with another at that moment. And it was so strong, so impressionable that the next time I saw your mom, I told her about it. I don't know if she'll remember it or not, but I felt like I needed to tell her what I was impressed with what Mark was doing at that moment.
Yeah. Well, no doubt she appreciated that. So I look forward to talking to her about that now. I mean, I can tell you that I would describe it as some frustration from mom and from me, probably everybody in the family. I just can't say for certain, but people were telling us, hey, I had this dream about Mark, or I had this impression. And we were, for the longest time, well, why aren't we getting something like that? I know and there's a lot of, we could talk about that forever, but So we always appreciated it when someone had an experience like that, and shared it with us. And I know that there's some people that would be afraid to share it, but I would say if you have something like that, share it with a loved one. And so thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I haven't shared it with anyone but Sarah, your mother, and just you just now. Yeah.
Okay. And now,
Thousands of other people.
millions more.
Millions
I
of more,
wish.
yes.
I wish
Millions.
millions more. Okay, so Doug, I'm gonna move on to the foundation, unless there's anything else you want to talk about Mark.
Um, no, I mean, there's we could go on for hours talking about Mark, but what else would be poignant other than just to say that he was my friend, he was loyal to me. I did my best to be loyal to him. He was significant in my life at a period of time where I was deciding that would change the rest of my life, to where I would marry my spouse. And so he was significantly important, intimately involved, and very, I would say, critical in helping me receive enough information to receive the inspiration to marry Sarah. Like I needed to be in that apartment with Mark during that time to get myself to the point of praying to ask whether I need to marry Sarah or not.
Yeah, that's good. And I know that's some of that is in the book that you shared. We started the Mark Forster Foundation quickly. I think it was officially established in December of 2010, I think. What is your role with the foundation and our events?
Um, Whatever Pop and Lauren tell me to do. Whatever your dad and Lauren want or need me to do, I'd like to stay behind the scenes. I don't like any, I don't like to be out in front, or I'm not a promotion guy, I don't think. Um, so uh, I'm just, hey, Doug, we need you to do this. I'm happy to do it. I'll do it. So I don't know. I'm your miscellaneous guy. Whatever you need me to do, I do.
Yeah, you do a lot. And there's a lot that you do that we don't know that you do, especially I know from earlier years. But your big part now for sure of the golf tournament. And we didn't start that until 2016 or 15, something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly the date. Yeah, I mean, I remember Lauren coming to my brother-in-law and myself, Jay, and said, "Hey, I got this idea. I think it would be good to have a golf tournament." And we both play golf, and we find every opportunity and excuse that we can to say, "Yeah, we can play golf." So we thought it was a brilliant idea, whether it was a good idea or not. Us playing golf was a great idea. So yeah, we went. we thought it was
Yeah.
we thought it was good. So yeah, I'm passionate about that. I really like doing that. I think it's an opportunity for individuals who don't like to do 28-mile ruck walks, or to hurt them, to run
Yeah.
in Haleyville, to come support the foundation and have a good time in a golf tournament. So I get really excited about that every August.
Yeah, it's a great event. I love it. I love what it's become, and I think it's improving. Every year it has, and so thanks for your work on that. I'm glad you and Lauren started that, or y'all
Uh,
had the
you're
idea anyway.
you're welcome. It was. I mean, I can't take any credit. It was Lauren's idea for sure.
Well, is there anything I don't know, any weakness you want to share about Mark, or anything in closing, Doug?
Well, Mark's self-proclaimed weaknesses, I think, would be dairy, uh, his shoulders, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Uh,
His fairy shoulders and his fairy peel. Yep. I still
um,
have some in my truck, by the
I
way.
hope you would say that. That's awesome.
And by the way, one year after one of the walks, I would guess I'm going to say it's probably 2011 or 12. One of Mark's teammates needed one of those OmniGest pills. he was hurting in a bad way after the walk, and I said, "Look, I've got some of Mark's in my truck. They're a little expired," and he took one. They weren't too expired at that point, but they're very expired now, of course. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, would you consider an obsession with Chick-fil-A a weakness?
No, definitely
Um,
not.
no. Uh, Bluebell ice cream, would that be a weakness?
Maybe.
Yeah. Video games. I mean, even though I think the hours that he played Call of Duty and the hours he played Halo prepared him in some weird way for his job to process multiple tasks at once. I think uh, him I think prepared him in a way for combat controlling, you know, to be able to command, you know, different situations. I think in a weird way. So was that really weakness? I don't, you know, I don't know. I never played those things with him. I never did. I didn't have any desire to, but I absolutely loved watching him play Halo and Call of Duty.
Did
Like,
he yell much while he was
oh,
playing?
did he yell much? He yelled all the time. He yelled all the time.
Okay.
It was great. Uh, it was it was fun. It was more entertaining. Like I would pick that over watching a movie. Like that, just play your video game, Mark. This is entertaining for me. So other than that, weaknesses. I mean, you know, I don't know if that. It's it's tough to pick on the guy. You know, did he was his legs too long for close quarters? Yeah, okay, that was annoying. I know that annoyed the fire out of you at church, especially. You know, y'all would come in and sit down next to me, and there'd just be two chairs, no buffer chair, and you know, Mark sat, his legs were like that, and you're like pushing his, opening him, you're like pushing his legs, things like that. That's pretty funny. So I can't really name any strong weaknesses, really. No.
Well, thanks for that memory. You know, you and I were talking earlier, Doug, before I hit record, and you were talking about how it's taking you a long time to read the book and to listen to some of the podcast episodes. And I think that may be common for people that are close, you know, and even though I wrote the book, published in 2013, I haven't read it front to back, you
Mm.
know, since putting it together. And I've started recently within the last few months, been reading it to the boys at night. And I just wasn't ready, I guess, either. And that's how, I mean, that's a long time. That's 11 and a half years.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you wrote the thing, right?
Yeah. And part of it is I can't stand to, there's, you know, there's things in there I wish I'd done differently, or, you know, too many footnotes and, um, or hey, there's another error. I mean, there's a lot of things. It's just the same reason I won't watch my speech from the funeral either. But when I look past that, I'm like, wow, you know what? That is really good. I'm so glad my boys can hear that. And I'm so glad that I wrote that down when I did, because I wouldn't have remembered it now, but I'm glad because it was fresh and I remembered it then. And so I'm very thankful to have that record, which is what I wanted, is a record. Didn't matter about anything else. It's a record of his life for, if no one else, for his family and his loved ones, friends. So yeah, I think sometimes I guess it takes a while, Doug, but that's interesting to hear that from you too.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it really of why I didn't want to do that. I mean, I just, because those are hard emotions, right? Do I want to relive that tragic moment where you find out your friend is passed away? You know, I mean, that's just difficult, and especially an individual that had such an impact not only on my life but so many people around me. Like it just wasn't my life that he impacted; it was people that I was extremely close to that he impacted, which is, I think, unique. Um, because we were such a tight bond. I mean, we're a tight family. Um, my extended family in-laws are very tight with you guys, and so I mean, y'all grew up to each other. I mean, I watched hours of home videos of y'all as kids, you know, at my in-laws' house or at the church or whatever. And so, I mean, I felt like I've been part of your years of Mark's life for many years, and then, you know, I just didn't want to open all that stuff up, you know, which is extremely unhealthy, and I don't recommend it. I
Yeah,
think you
good
should
point.
face those things head on and work through those emotions. Um, but I'd never experienced anything remotely close to that in my entire life, so I had no idea how I would react to that. So now, through time and being more mature, I regret those decisions. And I really, really look forward to diving further, you know, into the book. Um, Now, I've shared the book lots of times. I've given a lot out, um, and I tell them to read it. But even myself, like I can't, I couldn't read it at that time when I was doing it. So it's kind of a strange situation. But I look forward to, going through all the podcasts again and hearing all the stories from his teammates and his superiors and all the things that I was missing in my selfish desires to experience with Mark when he came home. I'll be able to experience through the eyes of other individuals, which so far has been satisfying.
What are your thoughts, Doug, of the grave desecration that happened less than a week ago? Mark's grave.
Um, Sad. I was extremely sad to think of an individual so off base and confused and demented in a way that would possess him to do something like that. So I felt a sadness. Now I know in my household there was a lot of anger, and if there was a call to a militia, we would be the first ones in the line to join that militia. There were things expressed like, hey, why don't we find this individual and then have them spend a month with Bobby, and then a month with Ish, and then a month with Johnny, and just kind of see, what that does for that individual, or some other things that we thought of. Uh, I just can't. Yeah, I just couldn't believe someone would do that. And not only to Mark, I mean, he did it to what, 20 other graves, or she? I don't know. Do we know who did it yet?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think the other ones were nowhere near close. Physically, geographically, they were not anywhere close to Mark's. I don't think. Yeah, Mark's was interesting because the only flags that were shredded was the flag of Mark's picture on it.
Not the
That
Alabama
warrior
flag,
picture.
not the.
The U.S. flags were not shredded. They were all broken. They broke all the flagpoles. Maybe ripped some of them off the flagpole with those little staples. The Alabama flag, I don't think it was ripped. I may be wrong on that. But they broke, and then the metal poles too. They bent those all over, and a little bit of damage to the flowers, but yeah, the Mark flag was ripped to shreds. The one with his picture on it.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of anger here, and there was a lot of discussion of what type of justice that individual would receive. A lot of illegal justice, but a lot of justice that individual should receive. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's just hope it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. Did you guys replace all that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, that was done quickly from what Dad told me. Yeah.
Do we have anybody in the shadows?
We need
Standing
to. There might have to be a camera put out there. Yeah. They had already talked about that even before this happened. But yeah, I mean, we may come back bigger bigger and better, bigger, more flags, bigger flags.
I think that's the Pat Forrester way.
All right, Doug. Well, it's been great talking with you, and I know that my family will enjoy it, getting your perspective and your friendship, and also your advice is really much appreciated by me. Even this cap I've got on, I remember I talked to you and Jay about it, along with Joseph, and for these new Jag 28 caps, and appreciate your input there.
And I've gotten 2 compliments wearing that cap out in public.
Good. I actually thought you might have it on tonight, so I thought,
Well,
I'll wear mine.
I just didn't know. If I knew that you were going to wear yours, I would have worn mine, I guess.
Well, my hair's gotten too long in the front. It needed to look presentable. I'll get a haircut Friday. Doug,
Well,
anything
my
you want to say?
pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Thad. I mean, it's um I remember distinctly listening when you released the podcast of you and Joseph, when you did a special one like this with him. And I remember I remember when you had that, and I listened to it, and I was like, oh golly, that's rough. I hope I'm never asked to do this. Like, I hope that doesn't ask me to do this. And that was several years ago, I think, that you did that with
Yeah.
Joseph. So thank goodness some years have passed during that time. But I'm truly grateful that you asked me to do it. It's it's been kind of another sacred time, you know, thinking about those experiences with Mark. And um, a lot of those experiences that I have with Mark, I share with Sarah, because we were really good friends, and then we were married. And so when I was with Mark, Sarah was with us most of the time too. And so it was really a precious, sweet thing for us to discuss those things again. So I appreciate the opportunity of doing that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Timing is everything.
Yeah.
All right. God bless you, buddy. Appreciate you.
Right back at you, pal. We'll talk to you soon.